here we are both on, and I'm going to kind of turn towards you. Hello. So
Hi.
We're here. We're in my living room this time with my, as I like to call him, yes, I will tag Jonathan in this video. I'm here with my, I called you my yogi surfstar friend, who is also a Long Beach person, although you have an international reach as well, because of we get to do these platforms. Okay, good. That's enough. So I'm here with Jonathan, and I'm just doing my thing of loving sharing people that I'm inspired by, like you. And just getting a chance for me to get to find out more about you too, and ask questions and talk about what we talk about, but really just because I want people to know about someone like you on the planet at this time. You know,
thank you.
Such a, to me, what I know of you so far, I think of you as such a conscious, present, wise, but yet youthful,
that's good.
artistic being on the planet. And
thank you.
Yes, and you are officially a yoga teacher.
It's true.
Like I am.
That's what they tell me.
Yes, yes. and yeah, I don't know if I've gotten to tell you that you're someone who I got to hear about you before I met you. That I had several people, including our friend Denise Dare, who I had heard about Jonathan, and just you being like a really exceptionally skilled and well-trained and thoughtful yoga teacher. That's cool. That like your reputation preceded you, right?
Oh, wow, all right. Well, that's
so
good.
I don't know if I've ever got to tell you that.
Well,
but,
thank you. Yeah, it's always good to hear that you're out trying to do these kind of things and that you're actually having a positive impact on others. It's always nice to know.
Right.
Especially behind your back, People are going to talk behind my back. I'd rather it be that,
Right. And there's a good word around town for you.
Good.
And how long have you been in Long Beach, though? I don't know if I know how much time you've been in this town.
Long Beach is a place that I grew up in Orange County.
Okay.
And, it wasn't until later in my life, maybe like late teens, early 20s, that I started to visit Long Beach, and I started to come up this way. And I just really liked it. I really liked the community. I really liked the diversity. I liked, it really has a lot of, the kind of the big city aspects where you have a lot going on, a lot to do. And at the same time, it has that small town kind of vibe where you know a lot of the people. You can run into a lot of the same people on the street. And, I was really attracted to that. There's a lot of art and a lot of, stuff like that too. And so I really liked it. And then, I kind of just made that as my goal. It was like, oh, that's what I want to get to. And it took a couple of years of, moving here and moving there. And so I've been in Long Beach now for about 5 years or so, kind of on and off a little bit, but pretty much staying here for the last 3 or 4 years solid. So, but it's been lovely. I really do. Every place has its ups and downs, but Long Beach seems to be where I've settled.
And so you're a SoCal boy, like
SoCal
I've been
native,
a SoCal girl, and I think that's been so interesting to grow up in this part of the world, right? And to be someone who was born into this.
Yeah.
And there's so much privilege, right? And there's so much wealth, and it's just interesting to make sense of, and to find your way in. But I felt like, and then you see some maybe more hippie conscious people going other places, right? Because they think they need to find it elsewhere. But, I felt like, I'm happy to stay in it and serve within the LA SoCal lifestyle, right?
Absolutely.
And but yeah, it's cool to see.
Right too.
Yes.
If you're gonna hang out somewhere and serve, then might as well stay where it's warm.
Yeah, right. And there's good reason why so many people love it here and stay. But and then I think it is an art to still appreciate it, though, right? Because you see a lot of us born and raised here even might not appreciate the weather, or might just only complain about the weather, for instance. And it's hilarious.
There's so many people, and I look at it this way, that no matter wherever you live, if you can't, you can be happy anywhere. There's people that are happy anywhere. There's people that are happy living in Alaska. There's people that are happy living in Florida. There's people in California. All over the world, there's people that are happy, and there's people that are not appreciating it and are not happy, even in the best scenarios, even in the best position. Even growing in affluence in Southern California, there's still people that don't. So really, I think that the main key is to find the place that calls to you, the place that
Yes.
your heart feels at home, and that you really feel that appreciation. And then just to go with that. And that for me, that's been Long Beach, and that's been California. And, I've traveled around other places, and I've always thought, maybe I'll go here and this will be, and I want to live there, and I want to, but the more that I travel, the more that I actually, interesting, I come to realize quite the opposite, that this is my place, and this is, I like it here.
Yeah.
And I love visiting other places. I love going to other places. I've been to Colorado and Bali and, Mexico, and all these places are great, but, California's home. Southern California's home. So this is where I make my stand or sit.
Yeah. And isn't that so cool how like our play with these practices and all this consciousness work and all this personal development stuff that we do. And I was just thinking how I think you and I both are into like the art of happiness even, right?
Absolutely.
But how it can even help you just kind of re-choose where you're already at. Absolutely. Or reappreciate, so that's kind of beautiful that it doesn't have to mean completely changing your exterior, but like maybe as your interior shifts, you really...
It's an inner reframing of how we look at it, and it's really, you could really, like being around here, even here we have a lot of affluence and we have a lot of this, but there's really a dichotomy, and there's a lot of areas right next to each other that are not very nice, right. Maybe like just more crime and a little, more poverty and things like that. But then right next door we have the other, and it really is a question of how you were able to digest those things, and how I can take that in, and if I'm willing to accept the good and the bad together, and if I'm willing to say that every place has that, and not necessarily just to look at the good, but like to accept that that's the way it is, and that we can love it as it is. We can, just as with ourselves. We all have some good and some things that we don't really like about ourselves. But the first step is always to be able to appreciate the wholeness of it, the whole person. And so, we can do that on the micro scale with ourselves or with another person. We can also do that, of course, on the macro scale with our city or our planet, or even bigger than that, with everything.
Yeah.
And it really is a, I wouldn't even say a mindset. It's really a conscious choice in each moment to, have that faith and just trust that this is a good place, and that, my heart wants to be here, so this is where I want to be.
Yes. Ooh. And interesting to consider, I don't know about you, but for me, to keep realizing how much that's really, I think, what yoga was meant to be about, right? Absolutely. Is getting into that place with ourselves where we're able to listen to even what our heart wants and follow that. Absolutely. Like, and that's like the yoga lifestyle, right?
It's getting into clarity. I mean, they always say, the point of yoga is to move out of avidya, which is wrong seeing. Avidya literally translates into incorrect seeing. And to be able to see clearly is to get rid of all of our, not necessarily to get rid of all the bad aspects and just feeling good, but to get rid of our judgments of them, and then just to be able to see clearly beyond all that, and be able to see ourselves and our community, that regardless of how it looks, there is this flowing synergy and this flowing unity, and that we're good as we are, and it's good as it is, and there's always ways we can improve, but we really can't even do that improvement project on ourselves, so to speak, until we have the awareness, until we have that acceptance, and we have that clear vision. And that's where the yoga comes in. For me, the yoga is that opportunity to become just a little bit more conscious of not only what I'm doing, but what's going on around me, what's going on within, thoughts that are coming and going, and just to have that clear vision. And without that, it just becomes so difficult, virtually impossible to really, first of all, enjoy your life, and second of all, make any kind of advancement for yourself, to learn more, or to do more, or anything like that. And so I feel that, the yoga, without the yoga, it's very, I feel like a lot of the people that do live in this place, for instance, that do have trouble appreciating what they have, which is quite a bit here in Southern California, I feel like the yoga is what's missing, in one form or another, that perhaps it is just a wrong seeing. Perhaps they're just not looking at it through a clear lens, so to speak. And anything looked at through a dirty lens looks dirty, regardless of its quality. So, to clear that lens and to be able to see clearly is really the principle. It's not necessarily about like making everything right or everything good. It's just about being able to see it clearly.
Wow. And to realize that's what our practices are helping us do, to keep like clearing the lens,
Absolutely.
right? And I love how you bring up the non-judgment is so important, right? Like I feel like
Absolutely.
I now just teach that that's one of the parts of yoga is starting to get into our non-judgment. Or even then I thought like, well, what's even better than non-judgment is like self-love, right? Like that's the next level.
Well, and I think that's the
Right?
natural offspring of that, is that, you know, when we can stop judging ourselves and we can stop saying like, well, I'm really bad for doing these things, and realize that like a lot of the things that we judge ourselves for are just perfectly natural human things to do.
Yeah, right.
And you know, and then from that, like once we can kind of exhale that judgment, just like that dropping of the tension of the shoulder physically, but also you know, deeper than that, then we can start to approach self-love. But I find that without clearing the screen first, you can't see clearly. And seeing clearly is self-love, is love, because the clear vision of ourselves and of life is, of course, the loving vision.
Yes.
And
right.
so we don't necessarily need to, I mean, some people say to practice self-love, and I understand that, but I feel that it's something that's not, it's more of the fruit. It doesn't need to be practiced necessarily itself. It's more that we need to see ourselves clearly through whatever kind of yoga practice we may do. And then from that clear seeing, naturally, we see, because the clear reality is love.
Yes.
So, you know, it doesn't need to be attained as much as it needs to be. It's like if it's always there. It's like if I'm looking at you, but I have complete blacked out sunglasses on. I don't need to make you happen. I just need to clear the sunglasses, take off the glasses, and then there you are.
Yes.
In the same way, that's how I look at it. Is that, you know, that self-love is always there. Love is always there as a substrate to life.
Yes.
But if we're seeing it incorrectly, then if we're looking through dirty glasses, then it'll look dirty. It won't look like love anymore. So we clean the glasses first. We get rid of the judgments, and we get back into being, you know, clearly seeing, and then it's there.
Right. And that's where I love to always talk about how yoga just means union, right? Or to join or to connect. So to reconnect with that truth, right? And to realize that's what we're doing with the practices. And so, and like, I feel like I definitely want to ask you, what are some of your favorite forms of doing that for yourself these days? You know, that you maybe are aware of, that you're consciously using because you know it's doing some of that clearing of the vision, getting you in that reconnect with that truth.
I feel that, I mean, the first and foremost, of course, is the actual yoga practice, the actual sadhana, like actually getting on the mat and moving and breathing, and you know, not as a form of exercise. You know, I love exercise. Obviously, I personal train, I do fitness, I love all that stuff, and I feel that that's just something different. And that's one of the things that helps me in this fact is the exercise itself, it's the gym and all that. But having the actual yoga practice based around not so much completing a pose or completing a sequence or getting into some shape, but more around as an opportunity to self-examine, like the self-examination, the noticing of what's happening physically and deeper in the heart and the mind while I'm doing the practice. That's the real practice to me, you know, and those are the things that are intangible, and that, again, they don't show well on Instagram, and they don't show well on LA Yoga Magazine. You won't be able to see, you know, when someone's sitting like this and they look all pretty on the magazine. I mean, they might be thinking about, they might not even be there. They might be thinking about, you know, their political stance or some other, you know, whatever they saw, what are they going to have for dinner later or something like that. And so the intangible, invisible things are really the most important. So for me, the yoga practice, physical practice is really important because it brings that clarity and it brings that centeredness. I also love journaling. I have a journal that every morning I write down, and I've specifically found a journaling practice for myself that I basically created through using other journals. I used other like pre-manufactured journals that kind of had like some cues. And then from doing that for a year, I was like, you know what, I think I know what I really need and what really sings to me. And then I did that, and I kind of created a little thing. And so I do that every morning.
Will you tell us more about that? Because each person I've talked to, we've wound up talking about journaling, because it's something I love so much too. What are your things you're doing with the journaling right now? Like,
well, I mean, look at it this way: that in yoga, and the 8 limbs of yoga, and in the yamas and the niyamas, we have this thing called svadhyaya, which is self-study. And it's just another form of that. I mean, it's the form of us, when we get down and write down, it's really amazing what comes out sometimes. And the fact that there's things that we might not even know we're thinking and know we're feeling, that until we actually enumerate it on paper, it stays in the dark. And again, we can't really see. So whatever it is, I mean, whatever kind of practice, for me, I have several different cues that I use for myself. I always start with my intention for the day is, I intend to do this or to live in this way. And it's not really so much like tasks as it is like, how am I going to approach today? I'm going to approach it. So I intend to live today, let's say, with passion and purpose and to give my best to everyone. And it's just a little, I mean, and sometimes for some people it might feel like, well, this is kind of like a corny little thing to be doing. I don't really necessarily feel that. But that's kind of the idea, is that just setting the intention over time. And, I'm on about 61 days today of this new journaling practice. And it's slowly over time. Yeah. Like so many things. It's not like you're going to journal once and be like, oh, I know myself now. But to make that, and then, I write down how I feel, and then how I would like to feel, what I'd like to bring in. Nice. And then I, keep track of where my business is at in there as well, like what kind of money's coming in and going out. Very practical things. Right. And then I look at, what are some of the fun things that I'm doing today too? Like I'm not business.
So you make sure
say I got to sleep in today, or I'm going to go see my friend and work out with my friend today, or going to go surfing today, or whatever. So I keep track. So I remind myself there of like, what are the good things about? Like, 'cause every day, like I look, I'm like, you know what? Even if I have to work 12 hours today, I also have all these really cool, fun things that are happening in the day.
Wow! So you're building that in on purpose.
And that's in there to remind me. Yeah, I mean, to remind me that, like, I mean, like I will, I put my work first, and then I make sure I remind myself, but like, that's that, and this is this. Yes. And then I always have my gratitude. I do 2 I'm grateful statements for things. And then I do 1 I appreciate statement for a specific person in my life. And that just kind of rotates through. Because, and I feel like it gives me, things, like things for my home, things for my car, and then like, I appreciate so-and-so because they really, not even for a reason, just I appreciate that. Wow. And then I do 5 basically positive affirmations, any kind of whatever I feel I need to remind myself of at the time, or just whatever I'm feeling at the time. Yeah. And then I do my 5 I am statements, which are similar, but those ones are just pure, like, I am happy and healthy. I am, rich and successful. I am whatever it is. And, I mean, it just sets that, while you're doing it, there's a lot that comes up that we can notice about what we're thinking. Right. And at the same time, we get to set, like, well, I recognize and I feel that I might feel tired, or I might feel a little angsty or something like that. Yeah. But at the same time, I'm recognizing that, and I'm being open, and I'm being authentic with that. But then I'm also saying, like, well, now that I see that, let me redirect to the direction that I feel is more, the direction I want to go. Yeah. And I feel like that's really what all of yoga is this opportunity. The yoga itself isn't the improvement. We're not trying to improve ourselves. We're just trying to get a clear sight. As we get that, then the self-love comes, and then we naturally start to do things that are more helpful to us, that are more beneficial, not only to ourselves, but to others as well. Yes, and then that can be really natural. I've noticed that too. And that's where you can really see that I love all the things you're doing in the journal too. That's an amazing combo. So many great things. It's working well for me. And to know like that someone like you, I mean, and I want to even say like a white man on the planet at this time, right? In the middle of Southern California is doing that in his journal every day. But how that's clearing the lens and doing what we're talking about with the yoga, right? So that's where I absolutely say journaling to form a yoga. I'm so into just sharing that anything that reconnects us is yoga or clears that lens. And I feel like we need a real practice, and I feel like at the end of the day, that that really, again, it's what's going on inside. It's like if I'm just writing in my journal and I'm looking over here and I'm really not engaged in it. If I'm just doing my asana, my physical practice, and I'm just like not really engaged in it, then, or thinking about how it looks or something, then there's really not. We really can't say that there's any yoga going on there, because it's not, it's the inner quality. It's the things that we don't see. And the reason that we're like, well, this person's done yoga for 10 years, this person's done it for a year, and they seem like they've gotten so much out of it, and this person is still, and it's because of that inner, like, are we really paying attention? And, second to that is, are we being honest with ourselves? When something, again, that judgment is what blocks us from seeing the truth. Because when there's something negative or something like we have a negative thought in our practice on our mat, we're like, man, I really don't like this teacher, some of that. And then we're like, oh, that's so wrong, and then we stuff it back down. We're missing our opportunity to really see clearly.
Yeah. Yes.
So those little things that are happening inside of mind and heart that no teacher can see, no book can tell you how to do, and that's really up to the individual. That's where the yoga is occurring. The yoga occurs in here, in the heart.
I love that.
While we use all these other external tools, we use the journal, but without. I always try to stress, without that personal involvement. And I say this for everything. When I'm surfing, when I'm in the gym, whatever. Without your personal involvement in it, without you being present and intentional in what you're doing, we're just going to miss so much of the sweetness. I always like to call it the sugar-free cupcake. It looks like a cupcake, and it makes your mouth water, and everything about it looks good, and then you take a bite in it, and it's just, it's just dry and tasteless, and there's nothing in it. It's not. There's no sweetness to it. And there's no sweetness to the yoga practice if we don't bring ourselves into it.
Right.
So you can do all the journaling and all the, you could stand on your head for 3 hours a day.
Yeah.
But without that inner thing.
Right.
Without that inner involvement.
And that presence. And to me, it reminds me of just like in life, what we see with things with what we'll call mindfulness, which is, the same idea, the presence. It's crazy that that's a thing because so many of us are not being present, right? It's so,
Absolutely.
To me, it's such a sign of the times that is such this modern, hot idea, right? To just be present, which is kind of like, because that's what we were born to be. But it's so interesting how we become so the opposite. But the great news, like you're saying, is it brings the sweetness to life. It's like, thankfully, that presence makes everything better. It's such a cool combo. It's like,
presence is what we were.
It's like the
presence
magic.
was demanded in the old day. I mean, I feel like when we were living in our, we might call it, I see this as our natural state as well. We're human and we're part of this earth. But when we were living, let's say in the jungle 5,000 years ago, presence was not something that you practice. It was just a requirement of the day.
You couldn't afford to not be present.
There's a snake up there, and there's a tiger over there, and you got to make sure you see where the plants you're trying to find, and you're hunting. So presence was just a necessity. I mean, it was just the way that you existed.
Yeah.
And we see this when we find these indigenous cultures that still exist around the world. We talk to them. Their idea of being present isn't really something that they even consider because it's just because they haven't been convinced to be paying attention to anything else.
Right.
And in our society, we've been convinced to pay attention to what's rattling around up in here instead of what's actually unfolding. So, and that's where, again, that's that clearing, that's that avidya that we speak of in yoga, is that we're looking at the mental construct instead of at the actual reality. And actual reality is, the sound of the birds and the water and, the feel of wood and fabric. I mean, that's actual reality, but we have all these, we're thinking like, this isn't like that other one, and this is a hardwood, and that's stuff. We're not. There's all those words and descriptions that we make. That's what we're trying to move out of. When we have that good yoga practice, then we start to experience things as they are instead of as we describe it. Instead of as this guy. And so it really is just. I always say that the essence of yoga, if we had to boil it down, is just pay attention.
Yeah, right. I think it's all about
start paying attention to what's happening here and now without calling it names, without describing it verbally, without putting words and saying that's a tree, that's a bird. Just look at it as it is. And that can be very challenging in our society. That's why we have yoga. It's where yoga came from. As we developed into an agrarian and then into an industrialized society, yoga became more and more necessary because, it didn't it demanded us to be up here thinking all the time.
Yeah, so it was like a new
just
thing.
Here engaging reality as it is.
We need to get people back in their bodies and back in the moment.
Absolutely. Which is why it's becoming more and more prevalent. Which is why I say it's necessary now.
Yeah.
It's not.
Right.
It's as necessary now as it was before. But we're just kind of coming back to the realization that it is necessary for us to be, and to put it really stereotypical, to be here now.
Right. Right.
Which is,
There's so many reasons. And that and then to get back to that, we really do want to be, right? Because it feels terrible when we feel like we're taking things for granted or missing out on our moments with our loved ones because we're too busy thinking about it, so it really is the biggest tragedy ever to not be here now, right? So it really is like a magical tool to feel like you can bring yourself into the now and then even be able to enjoy it, right?
Absolutely. Well, and I think that, again, just like the self-love, I think that enjoyment is actually the natural state.
Yes.
I mean, again, when we talk to these indigenous cultures and stuff that are still living in that way, and still relatively uncontacted, they're I mean, even when they're working very hard, they're digging these ditches and they're climbing these trees, they almost always have some sort of smile on their face, because enjoyment isn't something necessarily, again, like the self-love, isn't something we have to create. It's something that we have to remove the blockages from. We're basically just imposing a negative viewpoint on a beautiful world and life. And so if we can just clear away, again, clear those glasses, clear that dirt off the windshield, then it becomes clear. Enjoyment is the natural. And we all have experienced that. Anyone who's practiced has experienced that at the end of a good session, whether it's in a class or on your own, that you feel that sense where everything, you just naturally, everything just feels good. Like life feels good, you feel good, and everything looks good.
Yeah.
Until we, slip back into whatever, turn on the TV again, and we're like, oh, it's not good again. But that availability of that, I mean, that is that no one had to manufacture that enjoyment. It came naturally as the product of seeing clearly.
Right.
And to me, that's what the Yoga Sutras, that's what all this stuff talks about, is that we're getting rid of all this for a moment, the chatter and description, so that we can see, and then there is love and there is enjoyment.
Yeah.
Because life is actually and factually a beautiful thing. And
that was such a good one-liner right there.
And it's only...
That's like a word as song lyrics.
Well, but it's true. But it really is true. And it really is, and it's like, I feel like that's almost part of the problem, is it's become like this cliche, life is beautiful, and people try to convince themselves of it.
Yeah.
Which is I always say, it's like trying to make the tail wag the dog. We don't have to try to convince ourselves to enjoy or convince ourselves. What we need is a yoga practice. So we need something that's going to bring that clarity.
Yeah.
And then love and enjoyment and peace and all the other things that we've been trying to create are already there.
Are just there.
You can't create something you already have. It's like trying to grow another head. All you need to do is just realize that you already got one.
Yeah.
And you're fine. You don't need to grow an extra arm. You just have two already. We don't need to grow self-love. We already have that. We just need to stop stopping ourselves from experiencing.
Right. And I love that. But then it's such a belief system that is really beautiful to be open to, right? That our natural state is well-being, and that life is really beautiful. And I know there's some resistance out there that's like a privileged place to be in, but we could also say it's a connected perspective too. Like the more connected you get to what you might feel true is about the universe and even spirituality, that's what this is coming from.
Well, again, we come back and we look at, if we can say that, it's a privileged state and that we're sitting here in affluence. And I mean, I recognize and say, and I wouldn't say I necessarily agree, but I understand where that's coming from.
Yeah.
But again, I come back to the fact that these people that are living in the jungle or in the desert somewhere, and they're living a very basic, very rough existence. I mean, like I saw this video of this 16-year-old boy in Africa leading his herd of cows across a desert, and there's sandstorms, and he's got to fight off elephants when he gets there. And the whole time, throughout the whole video, he's got the biggest smile you've ever seen someone have. And he's just out there walking, and it's a hard. He's a 16-year-old kid leading a herd. I mean, leading his family. I mean, like all of their wealth across the, and they're all in this guy climbing a tree to fighting off bees to get honey for his family, and he's just up there eating and smiling. So the idea that life being beautiful is a privileged standpoint could, in my mind, could be true. I mean, I think it's true because we are privileged that we've been given yoga, and those people I would consider, although they don't have any of the stuff that we have, are also privileged people because they've been left untainted. Wow. They've been allowed to live in a way that is natural to them, and that is peaceful, and that is free, and that is happy, and they're free. And they have, perhaps even the indigenous person living in that place who's undisturbed by other people, has perhaps more privilege in reality than even the richest person in the tallest tower has.
Right.
Because they're actually free. And in that freedom, again, natural, they love themselves, they love their friends, they love their community, they love their environment.
Yeah.
Even the things that they have to hunt and kill to eat, they have deep respect and love for that. And I mean, that's not because they have a lot or because they have a bunch of money. They don't have any. They don't even have a concept of money in some of these places. That's, again, the natural state. I feel that it's almost harder, and I'm not a religious person, but in the Bible they say it's harder for a rich man to enter heaven than for a camel to move through the eye of a needle. And using that as an allegory, I think that it's almost harder when someone has more to actually start to get the urge to do these things, because there's so much available pleasure and so many other things that could be, so many temptations. Where in my life personally, it's been more when I'm at rock bottom, when I have nothing, when I feel the least privilege, that I actually come back to my practices and I actually do what I need to do.
Yeah.
And it's when we get to that baseline that we actually start to realize that clarity is important. That I had all this stuff and now I don't have it and I'm still fine. What's really missing is clarity.
Yeah.
And so, I think that I think we need to reframe the idea that to see life as a good thing, you have to be of a certain status or of a certain wealth, because there's people all over the world in all different scenarios. When I went to Bali, Indonesia, most of these people, they live hand to mouth. I mean, what they earn that day is what they eat that day.
Yeah.
And every single one of them is basically constantly smiling.
Yeah.
Every time you look at them, there's big smiles everywhere. The kids, they got no shoes, but so it's really, and any one of them you ask, is life beautiful? They'll say, yeah, of course. They would look at you like you're nuts if you said life isn't beautiful. They'd be like, look at the trees and we got the rain and all these birds, beautiful. And so, I feel like it's privileged in the sense that it's rare for someone to actually find that clarity.
Yeah.
But I feel like it has very little to do with our socioeconomic status.
Because obviously, and even the contrast, as you mentioned that, what are the looks on the faces of most of the people, like here in Southern California,
Go down
with
to
all
LA,
the privilege and all the busyness?
See everyone in the nicest suits and nicest dresses, and see their face.
Right? It's like, isn't that so wild?
It's this, and
it's not. The privilege is actually like bringing the misery. And then I think over here we've really bought into like this idea that you have to work so hard to be happy and that life is really hard. Ironically,
and this is the whole problem, is that if you're looking really hard for something that you already have, like if I was looking for my hat, this hat that I'm wearing right now, if I was like, I could tear this whole place apart, I could tear my car apart, I could look through my house, I could be working and sweating, and then, I'm like, it's just, I don't know where it is, I can't find it. And then that one moment where you're like, God, had it the whole time. And I think that's really what happens when we get to that, like, that level. There's a certain, we're looking, we're working hard to try to get to happy, and that's, that we're moving away from it in our attempt to get to it, because it's already here.
Right.
Beauty, love, power, present, intelligence is all here already, manifesting what we see and what we experience. So, to try to get to that is to deny its existence. So to say I need to get happiness is actually just saying there is no happiness in life. I have to go and manufacture it, which is the thing that's actually keeping us from happiness itself. Because if we stop all the attempt and just go like, find it right on our head. So, that's really, to me, that's yoga. It's slowing down and seeing clearly. And it doesn't, you could be, living in the slums of Calcutta, like many people are, and practicing this and still having this experience, regardless. And I feel like when you've been sold this story of trying to get there, and especially trying to get there through like money and fame, that you're almost more, in that case, I feel like you're more lost than the person who has less. Because the person who has less actually has the opportunity to stop and appreciate what's in front of them. Because we all have a lot. We all have sunshine and skies and oceans and trees and rivers and streams and birds and animals. And all that's available to all of us. But, we largely moved away from all those things in an attempt to find happiness in some city.
Right.
We're like, let's see if we could find it over here. I'm sorry, and we left it behind. And we're, it's like if you're trying to get home and you're already home, you're going to go wander around the city all day. Mm-hmm. And eventually you come home and you're like, why did I leave? You know, and that's so, you know, yoga is that kind of moment, that aha moment where it's like, you know, all my attempt is what was stopping me.
Yeah, it's like you're coming home. And so I know I'd love to hear at least a little bit about your surf life and
absolutely.
how that plays in with some of this.
I feel that to me, you know, there's many different kinds of people that surf, and it's actually a really good example of how, you know, when you're out there, there's a lot of, firstly, there's a lot of introspection, because, you know, especially when you go out by yourself, there's a lot of people around sometimes, but it's very much a solitary activity in many of these ways, and even when you're with friends, you tend to get kind of scattered about. Yeah. And there's this really opportunity to, because there is no device, you know, you're literally immersed in nature itself, in the natural. You're literally in it. You're not even like in a fort. You're in the water, and you know, and there's nothing else going on. There's these long periods of time where there's no waves coming in, where you have like the break, and you're really just left with yourself. You don't have a phone to dig your way into. Like you're left with your own mind. And there's a lot of things I find out there that become, you know, a lot of things that if we have that self-honesty and we have that, you know, looking, the desire to see, we see a lot of good, and we see a lot of our shadow as well. I mean, we're able to see like when we get frustrated, we get just upset, and how valid is that? And most of the time it's not valid at all. It's like I'm getting upset that didn't go just right, but I'm still, again, living on a planet where this is available at all, where there's storms 4,000 miles away that somehow turn into this beautiful thing that we can ride here. Yeah. So really, you know, I mean, it helps. It's very introspective if we allow it to be. And at the same time, there's people that are out there and their whole mindset is on competition and on this stuff, and they're not. While they might be good at the activity, but they're not having any fun because if it's not just right, and if they're not getting all the best, then they have all these stipulations on it. But when we go out there, there's this opportunity to just let it be what it is and just enjoy it for what it is. Some days it's really big, and some days it's smaller, and some days it's faster, and some days it's slower. But but at the end, you're still sitting there. And you're still in the water, and it's still, the sun is rising or setting, or there's dolphins around, and there's mountains in the distance, and a lot of people, and everyone's having a good time. And you know, it's a very especially in our culture, I feel like there's always something in front of us to distract, and it's almost uncomfortable sometimes just being out there with these 10-minute windows. Yeah, right. The only thing you're looking at is the horizon, and you're just sitting there, and your mind is doing what your mind does, and it's calculating, and it's deciding whether this is good or that's bad, and sometimes that's it. And sometimes you just observe that. Again, you know, I don't try not to judge it and be like, wow, I'm bad for thinking that. But just observe it. And then sometimes, you know, most of the time, if we just observe it, it always kind of leads to that clarity state. If I allow myself to have whatever negative thoughts I'm having, and just observe them, then it leads to this state of being, like eventually it's like you kind of see that none of that makes any sense. None of that is really valid. I mean, it's valid in the way that it's okay to feel what we feel, but it's not the case. You know, and so there's a mental projection over the given state. Yeah. And then there's that opportunity to sink in and just enjoy whatever's happening.
Literally sink in.
You know, and like literally sink in, yeah. But so it's a very, I consider my surfing to be just as much a yoga practice and inner practice as anything else. Yeah. Because it really is. And even when the actual act itself of riding a wave, like you're literally, you're in union. You're working together with, and like you really have to be completely present in order to do it successfully, because the wave, no two waves break the same, even off the perfect break. So and everything's got its own character, and it's always changing literally right in front of you, because the way that waves form, they come up in this wedge, and that wedge, and like the corner of the wave where it's breaking here, and there's actually like room to ride, kind of just slides along. So you're always looking at kind of a blank ocean right there, with just a little, all you can see is the section right in front of you. And all you can really determine off what you're going to do next is off what's in front. And that's not really something the calculating mind can do. So there's this necessity, especially when it gets bigger and a little scarier, to really just let go of that and to really just trust your body and trust your mind, trust everything that you've learned up and done. Just trust yourself.
Yeah.
To actually just go down that line and to know that I'm going to know what to do. And if we don't let the mind get in the way, it's amazing how well people do. Even people that are new, you can get them in that. If I can help them to get into that state, they're so much better. And I can see the difference myself. When I'm up here, I don't surf as well.
Right.
When I'm in my body and I'm just like, hey, it's good no matter what happens out here, then all the good ones come to me and I end up in the right place and I do well.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's just it's
a beautiful,
and there's so many challenges to it. Like you got to really physically push through, and mentally push through your desire to quit.
Face fear, maybe more than some forms of yoga.
I mean, there's not a lot of fear on the yoga mat.
Right, I know, right?
And it's not. I don't think we should live lives in fear, but I feel like it's vital for us to actually be in surfing around the world. There's definitely scenarios that are literally life-threatening in the moment. They're literally like you will die if you don't do this right, and in a real not so pleasant way. Not in your bed surrounded by your family. But so there's this, and I feel like there's this necessity for that, and it's something that we've kind of deleted out of our lives in place of safety and security.
Yes.
And I can really track that, like these moments, specific moments in my life where there's been really close calls. Like the amount of awakening and the amount of like appreciation, gratitude, and clarity that come from those moments.
Yeah.
Whether it's in the ocean or I was out last year on my birthday. I was out at Lake Tahoe and I almost drowned because I found out that it was very. Apparently the water was like 40-something degrees at the time, and I swam way out there, and then I started to kind of lock up. And I had to like do this little limp, and you're looking down, you can see there's like 25 feet of water. You're like, I'm gonna die. But obviously I made it back okay.
Yeah.
But there was this sense of clarity, peace, and just general beauty that followed that. And I think that's something that our ancestors probably did a lot more.
Yeah, right.
We used to get on boats and go, okay, everybody, we're going to go across this whole ocean now. It's going to take us 3 months, but here we go.
Yeah.
And to always have a sense of our mortality, to not in a macabre way, but in a way that makes us appreciate the life that we do have and the beauty that is here. Because nothing makes us appreciate something as much as when it gets taken away.
Right.
It's like little kids, you give them a toy and they throw it down, and then you go and pick it up, and all of a sudden they're like, oh no, I want that thing,
Yeah.
And we're very similar. We don't really grow up that much.
And so to have like a tangible way that you're giving yourself that experience, and I'm even thinking especially, I don't like to buy into that there's a lot of differences between men and women necessarily, but maybe men might, like as a man too, maybe that's especially therapeutic to have something where you're getting to have that sense of challenge and conquest and things that maybe modern men aren't getting, and they might be playing it out in other ways, right?
Yeah,
so if you're actually getting that chance to do it with yourself in a way that's healthy or something, but I don't even know that that's different between men and women.
I don't know how much difference.
Women and people of all genders and whatever we call ourselves.
I only have
right?
I only have the experience of myself as a man. So I don't remember any of my past lives. I don't know that. So I don't know what it's like to be a woman, obviously, and I don't know if they have the same sense.
Yeah.
But I do think that it's something that's inherent to all of us. I think that in the old days, in these indigenous cultures, that both men and women face imminent physical peril on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And I think that there's something about that adds that sweetness back to the cupcake, that sugar, the sweetness to life. Like, oh man, But I do think that there is something specific. I feel, as a man, from my limited perspective, that there is something. I don't even necessarily say it would be like just for men, but I think there's something about the masculine side of us, whether you're a man or a woman, that really. Just from a primal and just from an experiential and just from a, like our ancestor sense, like really does need to actually go out and face our fears, not just on our mat where we're facing our inner demons, which is important too, but to actually like go out and because the physical world is the spiritual world. There's no real actual difference. So when we face that, like there are spiritual and deeper shifts that happen in us. And I feel that, there is something, it's definitely, while it occurs in both men and women, I think it is more on the masculine side to seek danger. If you've have kids and you have a girl and a boy, you know, the one you got to be like, "Oh, just don't jump off that, and don't slide down that." It's probably the boy, you know, most of the time, depending again on that masculine feminine balance in the individual. But yeah, I mean, I think it is. I think it's something that I think we shouldn't. These are the sorts of things that I think we shouldn't be in denial of. You know, that we hear like, well, I shouldn't act like that, so I, you know, that's dangerous and that's this, and but it turns out again, it's more dangerous to not put ourselves in danger sometimes, because what we lose, you know, the sense of self, the sense of confidence, the sense of personal power, the sense of accomplishment, the sense of gratitude for the life that we do have, that we lose through not engaging ourselves into life in a way that is natural, which includes danger, is far greater loss than whatever we might lose if we actually risk it. You might get hurt, you might break something. I've been cut and broken, and you know, those things are small prices to pay for the clarity and the beauty that we get from actually facing real challenge and doing what human beings have done, and every animal on the planet and every plant on the planet has done for as long as there's been life. You know, and it's not all that, it's just that occasionally we need that. You don't want to live in a place, you know, you don't want to live in one of these really dangerous places where like there's constant violence and warfare. Like that's an imbalance too. But to go completely to the side of security and safety, we lose a lot there. We lose vital aspects of being human. And we fall into denial of our natural state, which is, then we're back in a video, then we don't see clearly, and then we don't love ourselves, and we don't, you know, we don't love other people because we don't. You know, and again, those indigenous cultures, they're facing that stuff all the time, and it strengthens their community as well. Like you've got to, no matter how much I might not like this guy across the way, but you know, when that tiger comes through and he's the one that wakes up, I'm really glad that he's there. I'm really glad for our community. I'm glad for the other people. We're happy and appreciate the other people around us. And I think there's just something innate about that, something that we need.
And it got me to think of when we started at a really beautiful preschool I had my kids at 10 years ago with kind of a progressive teacher named Tracy Roberts. She had to convince us parents how much risk is important in learning. So she's like, your preschooler probably will get hurt, get dirty, get bit, get, you know, by another kind, like all these things that are going to be part of a good, healthy, well-rounded child's experience. But how risk taking is a super important part of learning, you know. And that was like, she really had to, you know, like remind us parents, it's not just about keeping your kids safe. You need to give them that chance to take those risks so that they learn. So that's cool that you realize that as part of your lifestyle, even that you have a way that you've got a built-in safe way to play with risk, right? That examines your relationship with it.
Absolutely. And if you look around, I mean, like a lot of those sad faces that we see walking around these places, a lot of that is because they're doing things that they don't want to do. For instance, for a living. And a lot of that is because they never learned to actually take risks. Because the thing is, to go into, like, you know, when I first started going freelance as a trainer and as a yoga teacher, and I moved away from
that was a risk.
Thing. There's an enormous amount of risk. There's an enormous amount of pain and difficulty and challenge that happens at the beginning stage of those things. Where if you haven't been, you know, and I was sheltered from all that largely as a kid, so I don't know where it came from. I don't know where I learned this. But somehow, you know, that's if I have any privilege, it's that. You know, like somehow grace came, and I was like given the strength and the courage to do this thing, which I didn't think I had, but there it was. But you know, teaching children, you know, letting children encounter challenge and difficulty and heartbreak, even injury occasionally. Like, you know, don't let them die, but you know, injury. But you know, really sets people up to actually learn how to take chances and learn that, you know, to live the life in the way that you want, to do what you want, to do the business you want, to talk to the people you want to be with and be around. Like, those things are going to all require risks. Talking to that guy or girl you like, starting that business, telling people what you authentically feel, you know, all these things are going to be scary and involve a lot of risk. But if we don't learn to take those risks, then we live these lives of, as they say, quiet desperation. Everyone's walking around acting and looking, you know, Instagram happy, but they haven't ever taken a risk. You know, if you don't ever take the risk, then you don't get the reward. You know, and it's I I feel like that way of, I'm glad to hear that at least some people are doing that for kids nowadays, because again, that's, in our indigenous culture we come back to, that was the whole thing. The kids, I remember watching these videos. It's like 7-year-old kids catching tarantulas with a little stick and then wrapping them and cooking them right there and eating them and all this stuff. And I mean, it's, we would call that nowadays, if you got your kid do that, you can go to jail, but these kids, first of all, are happy, and second of all, that's what's helping them to grow into the mature adults that they're going to need to be, and to be strong, and to be capable, and to be able to do things, be able to take risks, and be able to make those calls, like, what's too big, what's too small of a risk? I wonder when I get hurt, and when did it turn out well? If we don't have that juxtaposition, then we really lose, again, we lose more than we gain by security, and there is always a balance. We don't want to be totally reckless. When I say, like, risk yourself, just to be clear, it's not go and just throw yourself into danger for no good reason other than to be in danger. Yeah. It's more about, like, things that you want to do, that your heart is telling you to do, that might also be dangerous, like surfing is for me. Do those things. Yeah. Anyway, even though they're dangerous. Don't go out and seek danger. But if there's something you really want to do and it's risky or dangerous, then do it. Yeah. Because, we need to face that danger in a way that is from our center and from our core. Wow. And not just, some people are just reckless and they get what comes out of that. But there's a difference between just being dangerous and reckless and being committed to doing what we're going to do regardless of danger and regardless of risk. And that's a huge thing to me, is that, to be able to just say, like, my heart is saying I want to go do this. I want to get into this ocean. It looks a little risky and there's some rocks, but it's what I love, and I'm going to do it anyway. Or this business is risky, this venture is risky, but I'm going to do it anyway because I know it's what I need to do. I know it's what my heart says. That saves us from a lifetime of basically doing things that we don't want to do for our entire life, just to stay alive so that we can continue doing things that we don't want to do, which is pretty insane. Yeah. It's a dumb thing to do, really. To try to go on living just so that just so you can continue to not enjoy it.
Walking around with that frown, right?
You're better off taking the risks, and if it sinks and if you fail, then great. At least you'll have lived. At least you'll have tried. At least you'll have done something, and at least you'll have learned something that next time you can try again better. Right. And we're so obsessed, I feel like, in our culture with getting things right. Like, I'm not going to perfectionism. I'm not going to go on the video. I'm not going to put out the thing. I'm not going to start until every little thing is just perfect. And every little thing is never, ever just perfect. Right. That's the whole point. Because if it was, then it wouldn't be a risk, and you wouldn't learn, and you wouldn't get it. You wouldn't actually get, again, that inner sense. You wouldn't get confidence, and you wouldn't feel yourself. You wouldn't feel your heart. Because all you're doing is just making a safe move, which doesn't, anyone in any moment can do that.
Yes. So maybe there's something important about doing something that feels scary, like if it doesn't have an edginess to it. Then,
not to do it just because it does. Like,
scary
from the heart. Just because the thing is that we don't have to look far. We all have it. We all have some things that we really, really want to do, and if we're really honest with ourselves, the only reason we're not doing it is fear. Yeah. The only reason we're not doing it is because of the risk involved. And so those are the things that I encourage people to do. Like, that's what you want to do. You don't seek trouble.
Right, yeah.
But be willing to go through trouble if it's in the direction that your heart is calling. If my heart says go surf in those 10 feet, like, well, I'm going to go. I'm going to make precaution. I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to make sure that I'm, like, as safe as I can get. So I'm not trying to die out there, but
right.
Still, you got to go when you got to trust that. First, I think about, like, Polynesian people took these canoes and went, across all these islands down the South Pacific a long time ago. I mean, that's how they spread across these islands. I mean, you're in a canoe going across the Pacific Ocean. I mean, you're safe on your home, you're safe on your island, you have plenty of fruit and everything, and someone's just like, you know what? I feel here that I need to go out there. I need to leave this safety and security, and I need to go out there. And everyone else is probably like, "Phew, you're nuts." And he's like, "No, but I got it." And he goes, and then he finds his own island. He starts a whole new thing, and that's how all of humanity has done it. The first pioneers in America that decided, like, we're living here and everything's great in Pennsylvania, but let's just go that way for a couple thousand miles, and you know, we're just going to load everything we got in this wagon and go. And what makes someone do that? You know, what is it that makes someone make that choice?
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to follow. And to me, to bring it all back around,
Right.
yoga
Right.
is what brings the clarity
Right. That's what I was
that
saying.
allows us to actually hear this guy
Right.
over this guy,
Yeah.
and then hopefully
Yeah.
we, if we've been doing it, have the courage to actually go do that.
Yes. Right.
And even
Yes.
in our practice, this is something I stress to my students all the time, is that, you know, you gotta, sometimes the courage is actually doing less. You know, when you're in the room full of people and the teacher's like, all right, we're going to do either, let's say, we're going to do Warrior 2 and just hold it here, or you're going to try to go into Half Moon right now. And sometimes the courage is challenging yourself to go into that pose that you were a little scared to go into. But sometimes the courage is quite the opposite. Sometimes it takes more courage to be in a room full of people that are trying to force that thing and be the one that's like, no, this is what's right for me. I'm going to stay in my Warrior 2, my nice... So there's, you know, it can really go, we really have to assess like the idea of risk and challenge, not just from that physical standpoint, but like the real risk, the real challenge that we're facing is, am I being true to myself in this moment? Not how much physical danger, but like, if the truth for me is to take it down into child's pose right now, and I don't, and I force it, and I do some great handstand or something like that, and everyone claps and says, great, I've still lost.
Yeah.
You know, I'm still losing myself, which is more valuable than any acclaim or shame. So to me, that's the thing, is that whatever it is, if your heart is telling you to like stay inside today and do nothing, and you go outside because of courage, are you really being courageous?
Yes.
You know, courage is the courage to follow your heart wherever it may lead. Whether it's risk,
There's another good one
or
later.
whether it's into more risk or whether it's into more security.
But and only you know, and then the way that you know is through your practices, right? Your practices keep helping you tune in.
If you're not knowing yourself, then how are you going to know what
that, right?
You can't.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, if you have all this mud of like thoughts and stuff all over the windshield, you're not going to be able to see. You're not going to be able to get anywhere. You're not going to be able to hear. It's like all this padding around the voice of the heart, and we can't hear it. So then we just kind of flop around out there. And if we can clear that. A lot of it is just the security. You know, it's a lot of these things that we made to keep our heart safe, which is part of why we have this.
Right.
You know, and if we can clear away all that extra security, you know, it's like if you build a wall around, if you build a dome over your house, you'll be perfectly safe, but you're also, you know, won't be able to go outside or see the sun or see the bird. You won't be able to live.
Perfectly limited too.
Yeah, you're perfectly limited. You know,
Growth.
so we gotta be mindful of what real courage is, and real courage is, to me, doing what your heart says. Yeah. No matter what that is.
Ooh, another good one. Yeah, and again, the way that you keep this figuring out what that is through the practices. And then I love that you and I feel like are both seeing and saying that it's not just about the inner experience, it is about the then taking action in your life. Absolutely. And following that impulse and doing the thing and facing the fear. Absolutely. To do the thing or not do the thing. Do the inner work. Whatever your heart told you. Absolutely. Right? So it's not just this like inner peace experience that we're going for with the yoga.
If it stays inner, then it's not complete.
Right. Then to actually like move it into life.
We're not doing the right thing, because it should flow from there. I mean, it's ideally like when we come into the state of clarity, life flows and we flow. And so if we're not flowing in our action towards others and towards, you know, the world, then have we really actually done the work in here? I mean, can we really say that we've done that? You know, and I feel like it is necessary. When most people would think of me today, like everyone that I know today would tell me that I'm an extroverted person. They'd be like, "Yeah, you're extroverted for sure." You know, you're like really extra. Like, calm down and stop talking. You know, but you know that wasn't the case. You know, when I was young, like pretty much up until I started my own business. So like, you know, 30 years of my life, I was very much the opposite. I was very much introverted, very much like very awkward, socially awkward, still am to this day, but people just don't notice so much because they are too. That's what I came to find out. You know? But, you know, but because of the business I was starting, like there was this requirement to go out and do all kinds of things that were really uncomfortable. Even if it was just like walking into a business and being like, hey, can I leave some business cards here or something? Like that was really uncomfortable for me. Yeah. And, you know, but I knew this is what I needed to do. So I had the clarity of my heart, and it pushed me through these uncomfortable situations. Yeah. And I feel like if I hadn't had that inner clarity first, that I never would have pushed myself through those things.
Yeah.
And that's why I always say that, like, without the yoga, without the self-knowledge, all attempts to improve ourselves are either going to lead to some place we don't want to be, or they're going to fall short. They're going to stop. You know, halfway to the goal if we're even lucky, probably a few steps. Because, you know, we got to see ourselves as valuable, and we got to see our heart's wish as worth it, as valuable. And if we don't get to that clarity where we love ourselves, then we can't trust ourselves, and then we can't go do the things that we need to do in order to become, to really embody more of who we actually are, embody our heart's wish.
Right.
And then we can fall back into, you know, other people's opinions.
Right. And it's so clear how when you're not doing that, I think that is what leads to what so many people are feeling these days with that frown and the mood disorders and the all sorts of stuff.
Most people are upset,
right?
and if you ask them, if you really sit down and talk to them why, and if you really hammer at it, and you explain, that's not true, what's the real thing? They don't know.
Yeah.
They don't know why they're unhappy and why they're so dissatisfied. And they'll point at things like, well, this guy's a jerk, and this thing over here is unpleasant, and you know, but those things occur to all people. Those things are occurring. It's not like the guy's not a jerk to the nice guy too, or the guy that's happy. You know, things happen. So it's really, you know, people are upset and depressed and unhappy, and they don't know why, because it's not something that they're missing.
Right.
So again, they're looking.
Yeah. It's
and they're looking, and they're like, I don't know, I've looked everywhere.
And they've been looking
so there is clearly
yourself,
that's the only place they've been looking. Is looking around everywhere else, because that's what we've been taught.
Yes.
So if you get the right car, girl, man, whatever, you know, you get the right things. If you get all the pieces in the place, then you'll have established happiness. But that attempt again is the denial of the ever-present happy. Like, you know, life is abundant and joyful, and the trees grow, and the birds sing, and the wind. You know, it's all here.
Yeah.
So if I'm looking for it, then I'm going to be upset, and I'm not going to know why. You know, and most people have never learned to listen to their heart, or they never learned to follow that voice. And so it's not, so they're going to be unhappy. And they don't know because they haven't actually come in contact to it. You know, it's like if someone's lived with chronic pain for long enough, they feel it, it's a bug, but like they kind of just go about. And it's not until you relieve it, like you come in and you be like, hey, let me give you your chiropractic adjustment. And they're like, and then they realize like how good they're supposed to feel, like how good we as human beings are supposed to feel just sitting here with nothing going on, with no house, just sitting out in a field somewhere. Yeah. That should just, the natural state is to feel good. Yeah. The natural state of these indigenous, when these people are just sitting around, they're just sitting in their little place, you know, carving wood or doing whatever they're doing, and they're just happy to be doing that. And it's so, you know, I feel like that's what's really needed, and I feel like this is why I do what I do. This is why I teach yoga. This is how it became such an important part of my life, is because as much as I like to encourage people in other ways, if you can't even hear, if you haven't even gotten in touch with this voice, then all the other things in the world aren't going to help you. You know, it's like if you haven't cleared the mud off the windshield of your car, no amount of GPSs and phone, none of that's going to help you. You're going to crash into a tree, you know? And so we got to clear that screen, and then we can start to chart a course. Then we can start to take those actions that are scary for us. But, you know, it's got to start here. Everything in our lives literally originates at the heart. First cell of the human body is what becomes the heart. Like when we're in embryonic stages, like that first cell becomes the heart. Yeah. And we actually look at it as like, my yoga teacher, he says that that's like the bud. And the whole body and the whole experience is the flower that is blooming from the heart. And the heart is the center and everything else. You know, and it really is. We got these arms, all this stuff just radiates out. And, you know, so until we've started to at least crack that open, you know, that's got to be our first work. And that's why I find that the yoga is, you know, one of the main things that I like to share. Right. Because it is so important.
Oh, and I love how you're bringing it through. And it just helps if anyone who thinks they're interested in yoga to know that it's so much deeper than we people.
And also in that regard, I'd also point out to anyone, you know, that you don't need to be a gymnast. You don't need to do crazy physical feats. That's really something that we've gotten unfortunately we've turned it into that in a lot of ways, but it's not necessary. The only things that you need in order to do yoga is if you're alive and if you're breathing.
Yeah.
And if you don't have either of those two things, then you don't need yoga anyway. So you're fine. Wherever you are, you're doing something else, and you've got your own stuff going on. But if you're alive and you're breathing, you have breath moving,
right,
and then you can do yoga. And so, if you've been to yoga before and it was like, man, this is too much, even if it was my class, hopefully not. But, if it was too much, don't let that discourage, because this is vital and it's necessary, and you can do it with just, an arm moving up and down. You don't need, just with your breath moving and your attention centered on it. So, I really encourage anyone who might be watching this, or anyone out there that find what works for you. Find a yoga practice. Find someone. If you want to just sit on the floor and do stretchy, find that. We have that.
Right.
You don't have to ever stand on your hands in your entire life. Lots of people have lived long. These people that live in this indigenous, they don't have to do any down dogs or hands. They might stretch a little in the morning.
Right.
Take a deep breath and they're there. And we might need a little more because we don't live there. But it's available. It's available to anyone.
And to know it's like clearing that lens.
Absolutely.
And it's reconnecting you and helping you listen to your heart.
And what's
right?
happening
And follow
in here
your
is
heart.
the real yoga.
Do what helps you follow your heart. Right?
Absolutely.
Do what helps you listen
and
to
it doesn't
and follow
require
your heart.
gymnastics.
This is yoga. Exactly.
I love gymnastics. One of my favorite things to do in the gym. I love hanging. I love the hand. I'll do handstands all day. But to me, I look at that. That's fitness, and that's its own beautiful thing that I love with all my heart.
Yeah.
But it is not necessary for yoga, and it can be. It can be part of yoga.
It can be part of yoga to
I'm
do.
I'm not going to exclude it. You know
Right.
what I mean? Because there is yoga that can be found there. Maybe that is I don't know what is the right yoga for every single person. I don't know that.
But it's how you're approaching it, right? How you're doing it from the inside. And
that's
where
why
your
we need to listen to the heart.
your focus, your
Absolutely.
awareness.
Because if you're listening, if you're going through even a basic practice and you're listening to yourself, then you'll know if you need more or if you need less, if you need to push or if you need to back off. And that really comes at the point of moving away from just doing whatever teacher says, even me included. And that's a good starting point. That gets us in the rhythm. But over time, the ideal is really to slowly more and more be led by what it is that actually feels right to you in the moment. Because that's the practice. That's actually following your heart. If you do the pose that hurts you just because the teacher and the guy next to you is doing it, we're missing our opportunity to courageously be who we are.
Right.
Even if courageously being who we are is like, I'm going to take an early shavasana. I'm done. I'm lying down.
Yeah.
Because that social pressure, the peer pressure of doing that is often, for most people, I would say, harder than doing the handstand.
Right.
Like it's harder for someone to lie down and say, I quit. And a lot
Say,
of ways and be like, I'm done. That's
choice
enough for me. I'm done. Than it is
it
for them, when everyone else is in their hands, to be the one person that's like, I'm going to sit on my butt. It's its own form, and it's a deeper and more powerful form of courage than just doing fancy movement.
Right,
which
and
is
it's
great.
such a
It's
symbolic
fine,
practice, right? Like I love to see how the time on the mat is such a symbolic practice for life. And I'm just thinking of that as you say that. So same thing, like in life, if we're overriding our own feelings to impress the other people, and in other ways of life, how much that doesn't serve us either. So it's this place to practice that, right? That's absolutely meant to go into life.
Well, I mean, again, seamlessly does. Like if our heart is in our practice, and what we're learning there, it's like what you learn in school, you seamlessly integrate into your life. And that, you don't have to really try to do that so much as you have to just like do the practice, connect, feel, and then again, that's totally true. That what I learn when I have the courage to do what's right for me, on the mat, that automatically starts to give me the ability to do that off. And when everyone else is deciding to go do that thing or to go do this thing, or it's so cool to want the newest shoe or the newest whatever, you gain this ability to step back for even just a moment, and it only takes that moment to be like, is that what I want? Or is that just something I'm being sold? Is that just something that's being, because there's, marketing is everywhere. And it's like, I always use the analogy, like everyone in LA wants a Lamborghini or Ferrari, right? But if you've ever driven in LA traffic, what are you going to do with that thing? Did you ever actually think through what would be the ideal thing that would actually make you comfortable and happy?
Right.
Or did we just get sold this idea that like those are the things that are cool and that is what's going to make you happy, and now you're spending your whole life going after it, and then you get it and you're like it's in this cramped little thing pushing a clutch and down traffic, and you're unhappy again.
That's one of those
and
things,
so what we really want is to practice that on the mat, and practice. That's why I say that, you know, whatever capacity you can do, the physical practice is important too, because there is, especially in a class environment, there's that opportunity for you to really stay true to yourself.
Ooh.
In the peer pressure group.
Oh, see, that's interesting. I never thought of that before. I like
and that's, I feel that's one of the most
Yeah.
important things
Yeah.
that we can learn. One of those skills that we lose by never taking any risks and everything.
But
is
it
just fall
requires
into
a
the herd.
teacher saying that.
And I always say that, you know, I mean, like, ultimately our yoga becomes our own, and ultimately we move out of really needing a teacher. But that, again, that's something that naturally, you know, ultimately the plant grows a flower, but there's a lot of stuff that happens before that, and the stuff that happens before an individual can actually like really come into their own, really blossom, and really just be that generally is helped along by having a gardener, having someone there. Like once the flowers bloom, then the gardener just stands back, you don't have to do any more. You know, once your rose is bloomed, then you can just sit back and appreciate it. And I feel it's the same way with the student.
I like that.
Like we do have to cultivate. It is our job to help.
Yes, we get
but
to
once
help
the student blooms,
right?
You know, which is another way of saying, once they learn that like this, once this opens and they're willing to follow it, then no more teacher is necessary, really. And we can go back to teachers, and I still go back to teachers because I enjoy their presence and I enjoy what I learn, and I enjoy being in that you know, the sangha, the community.
Yeah.
But there'll be a moment when it's not necessary. There'll be a time when you feel like, you know, maybe just being in my mat here in my house and just doing whatever comes to me is the right thing. But I always feel like that's something, it's like playing music. Like you want to have a music teacher that teaches you how to do all the notes and teaches you all the scales and teaches you music theory and teaches you all the stuff. And then you go off and you make your own compositions.
Right.
But the creation of your own musical composition isn't something you start.
Yeah.
So the idea that like yoga becomes this intuitive from the heart experience, eventually, I wouldn't say start there. Just like I wouldn't hand you a flute and be like, here, make up a sonata right now, you know? Because that would be unfair and it would be dangerous in the regards to your physical body. Until we're really in touch with that inner sense, there needs to be a guiding hand. You know, and I feel that's true for all of us. And there might be some, you know, reincarnated saint, but that's not. Let's just assume that's not us and get a good teacher.
Yes, but I love that. It's like almost like once the inner teacher has blossomed, or once you've really reconnected with that, that's when it's time to move forward.
Well, the goal of any legitimate yoga teacher is to lead you to your own authority, not to be your authority.
Right.
Because I'm not anyone's authority. I might be in a room where I'm telling people what to do, but it's all suggestions. It's all just giving them ideas, like try this, try this, try this, so that you can find your way back to you. Because you are the authority of your life. And you're the one that decides what's right and wrong for you. And, you know, so that anyone's, you know, this is one thing I always say, is that if any yoga teacher that you go to is setting themselves up as an authority that you're going to be dependent on forever, or even for a long time, this is run as fast as you can, because this is not a yoga teacher. Yoga teacher's job is to help you to come back to yourself so that you can be your own light, you can be your own guide, and you can live as those indigenous people do. They don't have someone telling them how to live, they just do it. And they get instructed on how to do the skills of their tribe, and then they live. And it's a full life, you know, regardless of its length and its danger and how many teeth or bones you lose.
Right.
It's a full life. And we can do that here without getting eaten by tigers. But, you know, we just need to have that. We need to be led, we need to be helped. You know, we need some signposts to show us the way. Otherwise, it's a long walk, you know, through a dark place until you find your way there.
Right.
And, you know, so ideally as a teacher, that's the goal. Just to help you be you. Not to just throw some system on top of people and be like, everyone do this pose or else. You know, a lot of this like threatening yoga, like you'll never be enlightened or good enough if you can't. And it's like, that's not the case. You know, that's that same thing. They're doing the same thing that the guy in LA looking for a Ferrari is doing. They're still trying to find and create and manufacture states that are the given state.
Yes.
And you can't, given state is enjoyment, peace, bliss, and beauty, intelligence, and power. And, if we're trying to manufacture that by like doing a system of your, thing, good luck. Good luck. Because I've never seen it actually produce any actual like real inner life-changing results.
Yeah.
It always comes from learning to trust yourself, learning to trust your heart, learning to trust how you feel on the mat, and then again, like you said, taking that off the mat and learning to trust that out there as well.
Right, and taking risks as part of it. Amazing. I love it. Oh my God, what an amazing conversation. I knew we'd have no problem filling up plenty of time.
I don't know how long
I don't even know, but it's been wonderful, and I feel like I've learned things sitting here with you, so I'm so thankful.
It's been really lovely,
Oh my gosh, yeah, and I feel like I would love to do this again. I'm sure we could talk about a million things, right? So
trust me, like I said, the biggest problem would be getting me to stop.
No, we could have so much to talk about.
There's so much to say about this, but thank you for providing the space, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to share this with people. I feel like a lot of it is, I hope it would be valuable to some people. I hope people can take this to heart and really, either start a yoga practice if they haven't already, and find a real teacher that's going to help you back to yourself, or really re-examine the practice that you're doing now and see, like, is this practice really leading me to more of my true self, or is it just another idealistic structure of like, I need to get to this, I need to be that in order to be good enough? Because if that's what it is, then please re-examine it. Change your thinking about this yoga thing, because it's for you, not for you to be someone else. It's for you to be you.
I love that.
So, it's great.
One of my yoga teacher friends once brought up the idea of asking ourselves, like, is my yoga working? To notice, like, especially like in how we're responding to people and such in life.
And how do we know ourselves? And how do we? I always say the first thing is to check in with your attitude towards yourself. And if you've been practicing yoga for a while and your attitude towards yourself is still largely negative, then re-examine what you're doing on your mat, because we don't need any more of that. We don't need any more self-judgment. And, we don't need to be. We can assess ourselves, and we can help ourselves to make better choices that will serve us.
Wow.
Which is a different thing than saying, like,
I'm
not good enough. I'm not good enough until I'm like Guruji over there. You know what I mean? And like that's you're good enough as you are.
Yeah.
Given state is beauty, intelligence, power. Like, it's already given. The world is a marvelous thing, and each one of you are part of that automatically. Given. Doesn't have to be, you don't have to get there. So, that's what yoga is. It's a process of remembering and realizing that I'm already at my destiny. I'm already here. There is no place to be but here and now. And if I want to be here and now, bang, I'm here.
Well, and I would say no judgment, but if I were to judge, I would say your yoga is working.
Well, it feels
because I can tell you really feel it and know it and just are living in that reality that you're talking about.
You should feel better.
You're not just talking about it, but you're actually like in it and embodying it and feeling it, and I'm loving life because of it. I guess. So that's pretty amazing.
There's ups and downs in life for everyone. There's no perfect enlightened state we've never experienced. The only thing that we really can get is to just be at peace with it all. To be like, the up is the up and the down is the down, and I enjoy the ride. And what a marvelous thing it is just to be breathing and alive and experiencing light and touch and sound, and just to be there.
Yeah,
just
to be on this ride, right?
Is the gift. And that's something that we learned in the mat, and I learned when I'm out surfing. You have that moment where you're getting perhaps frustrated on the mat or bored, and all of a sudden you stop and you look around and you're like, what am I even talking about? Like, this is marvelous. There's this stuff called water. Everything is just so beautiful.
Yeah.
And, that's the more that we recognize that beauty within and without, that's really, to me, that's the guide of effectiveness of our practice. If I'm seeing more beauty in myself and outside, and I'm seeing that, and I'm feeling it, not just like trying to see it.
Wow.
Don't try to see it. Do your yoga,
and
then if you're not seeing it, if it's not coming about, then change your yoga.
Oh, I love that.
Until you find the yoga that works.
Are you seeing the beauty?
Like,
check.
do I feel better? Did I see more beauty in myself and outside of myself? Check. Great. I'm going to continue down this path. If those checks aren't there, then maybe reconsider and maybe look at for a different practice.
Right.
Explore.
Find other ways to
find your way.
create that yoga for yourself.
Find your way. Try different teachers. You know, even if you're going to my class and you're not getting it from me, I wish you well. Please find the one that does. Because that's all I want. You know, all I want is a legitimate yoga teacher just wants, my teacher would say that like the only concern of a teacher is the liberation of the student.
Yeah.
And liberation not meaning some glowing, floating state, but like you're living from you're being who you are authentically. You're living from your heart authentically. And that's the only thing that I, as a teacher, that any legitimate teacher wants for their student. They want them to succeed and be happy and to feel, you know, be authentic, be who they are, to live their own, carve their own path.
Yes.
You know, to be liberated. You know?
And I know you do that through at least a few different ways that you like to work with people right now.
Yeah.
Will you tell us? I know you do.
Yeah, I teach yoga at Free Spirit Yoga, which is up in Bixby Knolls here in Long Beach, and I also teach yoga classes at Stella Luna Yoga, which is over in Cyprus. And I do private yoga with people. I also, again, I do personal training, I do fitness. To me, that's just, again, all these things that we do, because it's the inner quality that really makes a difference. It's this opportunity, even in that, to become a little more conscious, a little more aware of what we're doing. Not just pounding out exercises, but like really paying attention to what's happening internally while we're doing it. And I do that, and then we do workshops. I got a workshop coming up on March 9th that we do a technique called myofascial release. We actually use like a ball and find all these spots throughout the body that are tight, and we release those. And it's another one of these things that to me is just another opportunity first to take care of, actually physically take care of our body, to heal, literally heal the body. And then, but also like there's all this introspection, all this meditation that happens while you're sitting there and you're feeling that discomfort and you're just breathing into it and you're trying to like really relax your inner state so that your tissues can relax. So all these different techniques. But
and is that at Free Spirit?
That's at Free Spirit. It's coming up on March 9th. And you know, and those are the main things that I do. And I love to do it. If you need any help, if anyone out there needs help learning how to do some yoga and find the right yoga for you, I'd love to help you.
Do you also help people with surfing if they're interested?
You know, I help people with surfing, and I actually thought about doing surf lessons for money, and then at some point I kind of came to the conclusion that I'd like to keep that as one thing that I don't do for profit, that I just leave that to be what it is. But that being said, if you do want to learn how to surf, you're more than welcome to come with me. I got action boards, you can come on out, and you can check it out.
Field trips with Jonathan.
Yeah, I mean, like that was my thing. It's like, you know, I got a couple buddies that are starting and they're new, and they're like, man, I feel like I should be paying for you. I'm like, just don't, you know, just go hang out and we'll go surf. And,
that's your community.
You know, and it's just, I mean, it's just something that I love doing it. I love being out there, and it doesn't cost me anything to give you a little, be like, hey, go over there instead of right here, you know what I mean?
Right,
So,
just in general direction. Well, that's cool. I would go out there with you because I've been wanting to surf for years. And
everyone, you might want to wait a couple months.
Right, till it's a little warmer.
It's pretty cold out there right now.
That's been my excuse for not doing it. Is I don't want to be cold, but that's the stupidest excuse
ever. We can get you a really thick wetsuit.
Because it's not like we're in like Alaska.
Well, and right now it actually is pretty legitimate. I mean, it's 55 degrees out there.
But in a few months, with a wetsuit, I have no excuse.
You know, and the best thing, you know, and really, I would just say, like, you know, you want to learn during a warmer time, because it's hard enough, and there's enough you know, risk and failure, and there's enough frustration that goes along with learning anything, that if you're also freezing cold while you're doing it, you're probably going to get a really bad taste.
There's your first coaching yoga coaching moment.
First coaching lesson. Pay attention to the environment.
Wait till it's warmer.
If you're going to learn how to surf, wait until it's warmer, so that you don't get totally frustrated and cold.
Gosh. This has been so amazing to talk to you. Thank you so much.
It's been lovely to share.
And so what's a good way for people to, I know through Facebook, because this video will be on Facebook.
You can always find me on Facebook.
Friend you, but are there other ways that they can find you?
I'm still accepting friends until Facebook cuts me off. But I'm also on Instagram at Jonathan Neal Fitness. And, you know, I mean, you could always just, both those things have my email address on. I got my phone number all over the place on the internet, on my Facebook and websites and stuff, jonathannealfitness.com. And, you know, call, text, email, whatever. I'm pretty available, and I'm, you know, I'm always open to meet new people. And, you know, I'm always looking for opportunities to share this stuff, because it's really just dramatically changed my life in so many positive ways. And I know from experience that it can do it for everyone that's ever committed themselves and really gone into it. So I'd love to do that, you know, I'd love to do that for anyone that's open to that.
Well, we can feel your love, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, so fun.
Thank you so much.
And thank you, any of you who've been here with us.
Yeah, thanks for joining.
Appreciate you dropping in with us.
Dropping in.
I knew it would be a great adventure. All right, y'all.
Take care,
Namaste.
guys.
Adios.